My name is Nashi Harrigan. I'm one of the steering committee members of the Haitian Ladies Network. And I have the esteemed pleasure of starting the Web3, everything you need to know about Web3. So let's just, thank you. So let's just make sure this is where you want to be. So there are other panels, but this here is Web3, okay? So we're talking crypto, NFTs, all that good stuff. Yes? Yes, ladies, yes? Okay. 101, we're starting from the bottom, no. So, all right, everyone who owns cryptocurrency, we're talking Bitcoins, ETH, Litecoins, please raise your hands. Or at least, okay, if you know someone who owns one of those, raise your hands. All right, put your hands down. Anyone who owns any type of NFTs, raise your hands. All right, now put your hands down. Anyone who knows how to explain Bitcoins, raise your hand. I don't know how to do it either, so that's why I'm here. I have no clue what it means, but I do own some Bitcoins. So let's get started. I have the esteemed pleasure of bringing over Stacey Samuel as our moderator. She is an award-winning producer with over 20 years of experience. She owns her own company, and she is one of our strongest supporters of Haitian Ladies Network. If you've been to any of our previous sessions, you have seen Stacey. So let's call her up. You guys give her a big round of applause.
Thank you, darling. Bon après-midi. It is so wonderful to see you all. I tell you, this feels like a family reunion when I get to see each of you and I realize, oh my goodness, it's been a year. So this is our family reunion. And what we want to do today is talk to all of you, our friends, our sisters, our mothers, our grandmas, our aunties, and really try to explain what this new frontier is. So with that, and by the way, wasn't that a wonderful introduction? She stole my introduction. That's how good she is. I was going to make everybody raise their hands. And I was going to, right? That was really well done. Not that I'm surprised, right? Because we are really filled with brilliant women here. And so I was going to ask you to raise your hands if any of you had a digital wallet. Don't raise your hands. We're already getting a sense that we're all here because we want to learn something, we want to know more. It's exciting, it might be scary, but maybe some of you have an avatar already. Maybe some of you have children, nieces, nephews, sons who have, and daughters, excuse me, who have avatars. I'm still working on my avatar name. I have her persona, but I don't have her name yet. So we want to be able to really give you a sense and understand that Black women are increasingly making their mark in the metaverse and have launched their own Web3 companies. Today, we hope to give you, our family, some insight into understanding the technological movement that is underway and will be impacting every facet of your financial and experiential life, if it isn't already. So with that, let me introduce our panel of women who are on the cutting edge of Web3 and all that is the new frontier. So please, welcome to the stage, Genevieve Leveille, and CEO of AgriLedger. Please come to the stage. She is the principal founder and CEO of AgriLedger. Her background is in corporate and institutional banking. She has more than 25 years experience dealing with large corporations and banks in the financial supply chain optimization space. She has a reputation for the delivery of disruptive technologies in large-scale projects. Genevieve is recognized as an authority in the realm of the digital identity and financial transformation, and she is gonna break it down for us this afternoon. Thank you. Next, we have Daniele Jean-Pierre. She is a co-founder of ORO Financial. Many of you have seen her throughout the years here at the Haitian Ladies Network Weekend. She's a corporate finance, international law, diplomacy, and development expert. She's worked at USAID, which she was reminding me of from years ago. I said, what were you doing back then? She was like, oh, I was at USAID. I mean, we forget how incredibly impressive we all are. Amongst her many accolades, Danielle has been a U.S. diplomat in Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, and she's a graduate of Stanford University and Harvard Law School. She is the Web3 startup co-founder of ORO, which is a DAO for the future. Now, we will do some vocabulary lessons here. You will all walk out of here knowing what a DAO is. And we want to bring our final panelist, I don't want to say final, well, not least of which is Maureen Murat. Maureen is the principal of Crowdie Advisor. She's an attorney. She's a founder of this organization that helps small businesses and startups raise capital, ladies, right? We all have great ideas, but we need the capital to get started. The business educates entrepreneurs about equity crowdfunding, the online offering of private company securities to a group of people for investment, and she specializes in blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. So with that, girls, let's have a good conversation. We will chat, we will teach you some new words, and then we will leave time for you to ask questions, those burning questions. Mm-hmm. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. You know, I think we all need a little bit of a vocabulary lesson, right? Genevieve and I were having lunch and we were talking, and I realized, what makes me qualified to do this panel? Not that much, except for the fact that I'm working on a documentary right now about cryptocurrency and the crypto Web3 space where we, people of color, Black folks, are over 25% represented. Mm. So I'm still being orange peeled, by the way. That's another little term, right? I'm learning. We're going to try to peel back the layers for you guys today. So let's start with a little bit of a vocabulary lesson, I think. What is Web3? How do we? You want to tackle it? Okay. So the Google, definition of Web3 is, Web3 is a term some technologists use to describe the idea of a new version of the web, made up of blockchain-based platforms and services fueled by cryptocurrency. So Web3 is really the next evolution of Web 1, right? We all got emails. Web 2, we're all on social media and leveraging it for our businesses, our own personal brands and platforms. So how would we describe Web 3? Do you want to take that, Maureen?
Sure. I'd say that in addition to that definition, that the concept of Web3 does really build off of Web 2, right? The fact that we're able to communicate and all that with each other. But I guess with Web3, the extra layer, if you will, is providing a space where these communications and these interactions can be leveraged by blockchain technology. And I guess we could talk about the blocks and all that. I don't know if you want to do that.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
But also where people are also able to have some ownership or some more accessibility of the things that they share with people on the internet. You want to add to that?
I would agree. I think the difference between Web 2 and Web 3 is all about communities. Mm-hmm. Communities coming together to decide what they want to do with their money. If they want to be a miner and support a blockchain, if they want to invest in a cryptocurrency, if they want to support an NFT launch, community and community ownership. And so that is, and decentralization. Mm-hmm. And so this notion that organizations have to look like a pyramid and there is a leader at the top that makes all of the management decisions, and the rest of the individuals who potentially are members of that organization don't get a say. They just get to follow the leader. Web3 turns that on its head, and so now it's an inverted pyramid where everyone has a say. Everyone can be an owner, and everyone has an opinion. So that's what's super exciting about Web3.
Genevieve, can you explain kind of pick up where Danielle just left off, because she mentioned decentralization, right? As a banker and a longtime banker, how do we explain what DeFi is? Okay, there's another term, another vocabulary term, right? So you got Web3, now we're DeFiing it.
So what happens is that I think I'd like to add to what Danielle said, it's also the lack of censorship. It's also being able to create governance without having a government or anybody at the top. I have my views that we probably need the councils of elders or the people who are the translators, if we're not to have towers of Babels coming out of DAO. But when we talk at DeFi, it's really removing one central authority making the decision or having themselves only the information. So it's making that information available to everyone who is part of the transaction, so that you can have what we, the blockchain is about creating trust through data. So if you can see the evidence, then you can understand what has actually happened rather than being told what has happened. You can understand if costs have gone up. Okay, it's going up, so therefore I make less. But if they are regularized also, then your expectation are being met. And this is where, DeFi also require what I call smart contract. They're not contract, they're just algorithm, but now they're becoming contracts because lawyers like Maureen are spending their time trying to create that regulation, because if I agree that this is going to be what's calculating, then I give it the power. And that's really where it is.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add, so DeFi is short for decentralized finance, but just based on everything we're saying, I think at the end of the day, the goal is to remove that central authority or that intermediary or that middle person that kind of controls how you connect, communicate, transact with others. So the goal of Web3 is to remove that person and I guess build more community, like Danielle was saying.
I really want to get to the community aspect, right, and the accessibility and the potential it has. But I almost feel like I might need to take a little step back, right? Because when we think of fintech, right, which is sort of an extension or another vocabulary word here within this space we're discussing, how are we already engaging in the fintech space, right? Right? We hear fintech, it sounds great, but I think I might be using it or engaging with it, right? I use PayPal, I have Venmo, I use Zelle to send money. Now, there is a centralization in those kinds of financial interactions or transactions I'm making, right? So that is the centralization of this process. But how are we already engaging in fintech? And then maybe, Danielle, you can explain how you are community building with ORO Financial within this new frontier space.
Right, so I think that's a great question, but let's start at the top. We're talking about fintech, but it all begins with a central bank. Our central bank is called the Fed. They issue our currency, the US dollar. From there, we have banks. So you have your Bank of America, your Citibank. But the problem with the banking layer is that they are not designed to actually talk to each other, to communicate with each other. So they communicate in a really antiquated way. And that's where fintechs come in, because fintechs saw the PayPals, the Zelles, the Cash Apps. They saw, well, if you had a Bank of America account and this other person had a Citibank account, you couldn't just electronically send each other money. You needed another layer to have that level of communication. And so 20, 30 years ago, the PayPals came along. Zelle, the banks decided once they saw the Cash Apps and the Zelles that, hey, we need to have a solution so people can send each other money and not leave our platform. But what we're doing in the Web3 space is we're saying with digital assets, you don't even need a bank. You don't even need this fintech that's connected to your bank. You can have these transactional layers and this communication without these financial intermediaries that ultimately drive up the price of delivering financial services to Black and brown communities globally. And so this is what the revolution is about. This is why we are taking that leap and leaning into Web3, because now you have the potential for someone anywhere in the world to send a digital asset to someone else anywhere in the world and not have a financial intermediary settle that transaction. It's all done by code. And that's what's extraordinary about blockchain. That's what's extraordinary about Web3. And so we're here on stage not to say, well, Bitcoin or sell your ETH or buy this, but we're here to say that concept that people can transact without a financial intermediary is something that we can build upon and we can leverage to build wealth for our communities. And so this is what we do at ORO Cash. We are creating this wealth building community-led banking platform so that people around the world can collect their resources, decide how they want to deploy them, and build wealth for their communities.
And would it be fair to say, without that middle man, the middle institution, that charges us, right?
That's right.
Now, I would imagine, and I think it would be a fair assumption to say that everyone here has a bank account, might have multiple accounts, checking, savings. We pay fees for this. We pay to bank, right? But when we think about those who are not necessarily in the same financial position that we are in, like our people in Haiti who are underbanked, right? Don't have the money for those transactions, right? Most of us don't even think about, we're paying for these transactions. So how is it that we can, and this is for all of you, but I'm going to start with you, Danielle, because I know ORO Financial works on this sort of community building and investment into small companies, because I know for a fact that we're here, all of us here have lots of ideas. We're very entrepreneurial in spirit, right? It is within our tradition and culture. This is who we are. So, but we are also not the first people that get venture capital to start our businesses and put our great ideas into fruition, right? Which makes us a lot more money, which, how does, the technology that you're using, how does ORO Cash help, anyone here who's an entrepreneur or wants to be, but needs to raise some capital?
That's a great question. We actually have developed a platform for that person to say, hey, we want to fundraise. Let me start what we call a quick bank. So you download the app, super simple, just like you're downloading your Cash app, but instead you're using ORO Cash. You download the app, you create your account, and then you have an option to create what we call a quick bank. And a quick bank is, now I'm gonna use a couple of technical terms, but let me just give you the concept. It's a group wallet where you invite people to contribute their digital assets into that group wallet, and then you can vote on what you want to do with those resources. And you chat and you vote and you decide how to manage those resources as a collective. And so it is an optimal fundraising platform because you can raise digital assets, you can raise fiat, which is US dollars, US currency, but do it in a way that your community can participate. And so this is where this is the beginning of wealth building, because what also we do is we have some amazing people on our team. Our CTO is an AI ML expert. And so what he is developing is this reputational credit concept using artificial intelligence. So the more your community transacts on the platform, then you're building this kind of like transactional credit score where you know if this small business needs a loan and you've pooled assets and you've decided based on their transactional history, hey, let's give this small business a loan, let's fund X or Y, you know that the ability of that individual to repay or that business to repay is in the data. And so we are creating, instead of going to a bank and, oh, well, let me get a loan from a bank, we are creating the opportunity for communities to essentially bank themselves. Because that's what happens at banks. You deposit your money, they take that money, and they make loans to other people, and they give you 0.05%. Instead, we're saying, let's cut out the middleman. We have the collective intelligence to know who in our community needs support. What venture out there should we be supporting? Should we be lending to? Should we be investing in? Or even what project we want to support. You want to build a library in Haiti? Bring your community onto our platform. Raise that money. And then send that money to Haiti all within the platform. And you know who's contributed, you know when they've contributed, and you know who's gotten the money in Haiti. It's all visible within the platform. It's immutable and it's visible. So with all of this technology, we want people like you to come up with ideas. How do we use our collective intelligence to leverage this technology to build wealth for our country, for our community? This is what we are excited about, bringing to the market.
Very exciting. And Genevieve, this kind of picks up on the conversation you and I were having, and it almost lends itself to the name of your company, AgriLedger, right? There's a ledger that's happening here that Danielle started explaining to us, because there is a record of transacting. Can you talk about that?
So we take it a little more further than the record of transacting. We're taking it to the life cycle of the product. What has happened? Did the temperatures get reached? How long did it take to get from point A to point B? And all that becomes information. So the rule is it has to get from the tree to processing in 12 hours. If it doesn't make it. Or if you find a fly, the whole lot has to be removed. So you start looking at really safety and also value, because if something is removed at the beginning of its journey rather than at the end, you haven't spent your resources actually getting it to that. So what we were doing is understanding who brings what, so to whom does it belong, so creating ownership at the first level, creating the escrow, so who is taking advantages of doing some work, so who's providing services. Because we talk a lot about middlemen, but in reality, we're not all going to do everything. And if you want to be able to do things at scale, you need to get the right resources and people who specialize. So if you're doing exports, somebody's got to package it, somebody has to follow the regulation in order to get it out. So by creating this traceability, you create first a de-risking. So the next person does not need to buy. They just need to provide their services and be paid for those services. And then, as a result, with de-risking, it allows more money to flow back into the pot and to be redistributed. So the project we did was around mango, and we were able to show a farmer going from about 14 cents a dozen to where it became $1.86 per dozen. And that was just by removing those layers and creating that trust. Now, we do have to work in ways then to fund it, because that's the biggest challenge. This is where things like ORO comes in. ORO can become the platform that provides a micro-loan, because the farmer just wants the 14 cents. Now, you've de-risked it, you are actually taking everything that's good, and you're not losing money. And then by the time it comes back, so we figured, well, do you really need to give the farmer 700%? You could actually give him maybe 600 and take some of that 100 to pay back the people who invested, which is a bigger return than actually putting your money in saving. So these are kind of projects. So when we talk about DeFi, this is what DeFi does for you. It gives you transparency as to where you're putting your money, how it's actually working, who is it benefiting, and how you can actually help communities.
That's brilliant, and I really hope you all heard that, right? The return on the investment. What happens in decentralized banking and money exchanging where a farmer who would have gotten 14 cents can now have the opportunity of getting $1.86, right? What would that do in terms of changing the life of someone, whether that's a farmer or someone with a business. Anyway, I find that outstanding. And with that, Maureen, so Genevieve talks about the ledger, right? Can you talk about the technology? What is the blockchain? What is blockchain, right? Because there's technology that's running behind this, and we hear these buzzwords, and they sound sexy and or scary, but can you explain what that is?
Yes, I can, but I wanted to take a step back to talk a little bit about when we talk about using these different digital assets or tokens or whatever you want to use to represent the different value, you still have to come into to be part of the ecosystem, I should say. You still do need, because this is the world we live in, you still do need cash, right? So it's not like these digital assets, you can't buy digital assets without money. Like, it starts with buying, having the money, buying the digital assets, and then being able to either deploy them to other businesses, trade them, etc. So I wanted to I feel like that little line was lost somehow.
Thank you.
Like,
yes.
you still need money to get in, So in terms of blockchain, the technology, just to give you, some of the buzzwords, it's a distributed ledger. At one point it was considered immutable, but I think now we say that it's tamper resistant, right? And that it is not necessarily autonomous, meaning that anybody is on it. You don't know who's on it. It's more so pseudonymous. So because you can track these different transactions, you can see it, let's say a Bitcoin or something moving from wallet to wallet. You just may not know who owns that wallet, right? There's no name attached to it. It's an address. But in terms of, if you think of blockchain visually, right, it really is a chain of blocks, right? So from one block to the next, they have the original block that will have certain data and information, and it is bind, or I don't know, I'm trying not to be too technical, right? But essentially that information on that block, once it's complete, there are all these algorithms working in the background. And so you go on to the next block, and that is connected by this little chain. And in that second block is information from the first block, right? That is copied into the next block, and it goes on and on. And this is how you create trust in the technology, in the sense that you know that the information is going from block to block, but it's not being changed by one person or being disrupted. And if someone tried to attack it, let's say, or disrupt it, everyone would know, right? Like, you can't hide that. The other thing I wanted to say was, because blockchain is technology that all of these things that we're talking about are running on, I like to think of blockchain as a train tracks, right? So you have this train track, and on top of that, you have the cryptocurrency, you have some of the aspects of DAO, you have NFTs, et cetera, kind of being built on that technology. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm sorry for being in your face.
No, you see, so we're starting to understand the technology that drives this, right? Because what we're trying to understand is, well, how do we trust the system? How does it work? Genevieve, you have something to add to this.
I was going to say, though, it's not, to me, the technology is not so important. Do we know how email works? Doesn't matter. What it really matters is, how does it help us get what we need? So if I can create trust, so when I send you an email, as long as you've given me the right address, it gets to you, I can put a return receipt and know that you've received it. So we are communicating. So this is a way of communicating. And I think also one of the things that has to be clear, and I want to say, is when we did the installation in Haiti, the farmer didn't have a smartphone. What he needed to have was a dumb phone, which we could send an SMS to him. At the end of the day, what we all want is communication. So if I can send information to you and I can let you know, so we let him know when his goods got to Port-au-Prince, when it got to Miami, when it got sold, and how much he's getting. That's what they want to know. And that's what we want to know also. So this is an empowering technology in being able to allow us to prosper and to make, and there was an article, it was one of those things, love-hate relationship with this project, because this was starting 2018, finished in 2021, so you can imagine I lived pay luck. However, what it did is that it created the mechanism for actually delivering a piece of software without being able to step in the country. Seeing a difference, so communication had to be not only within us, but also this is where this technology is about collaboration. And that collaboration is a bedrock, and now we're starting to layer different things in there. So we shouldn't think, and this is very important, you shouldn't think that you need smartphones. You just need ways to communicate to people to have that information imparted. And that then creates wealth, because you then don't have to worry about where the bleeding is happening.
That's a perfect oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say this is a perfect segue to Danielle to explain her DAO-focused, financial service. I'm still looking for the words, right? Because we do need to know what a DAO is, right? The decentralized autonomous organizations that allow for essentially what Genevieve was explaining. But Maureen, so you don't lose your thought, go ahead. And then we're gonna come to Danielle to explain what a DAO is.
Okay, yeah, and I think that might still feed into what Danielle will say next. But I think Genevieve made a really good point, because we often talk about, when we think of blockchain, we only think about financial transactions, right? Or financial data moving from one place to another. But blockchain also can accommodate any type of data, including, messaging and being able to move medical data, supply chain data, all types of information that needs to be shared or that needs to be in one place or be moved from block to block. So it's not just financial transactions.
Okay. But just so we pause for a second, this is how it already works,
right?
Whether we are aware of it or not, right? We have the benefit of not thinking about how our money moves, how our emails and communications are facilitated. So we're already in it. These ladies are taking us, they're on the frontier, and they're gonna take us to where this is already going, so we are ahead of the curve. So with that, explain what a DAO is and how you work with that in benefit to what these kinds of investments we're interested in making in ourselves.
Sure. So again, a DAO stands for a decentralized autonomous organization. So it's an entity that no one owns individually, but the collective owns and manages it. So that's why it's decentralized. It is autonomous in the sense that there could be, there are smart contracts associated with decisions that are made that affect the organization. And so a smart contract is super simple. It's just, if X happens, Y happens. X could be, if 51% of the members of this decentralized autonomous organization vote to do Y, then within the code, Y automatically self-executes, whatever that Y is. And so that is the basic framework for a DAO. So we looked at that, and there are thousands of DAOs out there. We looked at that infrastructure and we said, well, we care about financial freedom. We care about financial inclusion. We care about wealth building. And of course, we care about Haiti. How can we, with this concept of people from around the world pooling their assets into a smart contract and creating proposals that would then self-execute, how do we leverage that technology to bring these concepts of wealth building, financial inclusion, and financial freedom to Americans here, to Haitians, to the diaspora community? And so this is this concept of the Quick Bank on our ORO Cash platform. And it's the concept that we as a collective have intelligence, data, and resources to finance ourselves, to be autonomous, to say, hey, we know what we need for this country. You follow us, invest in us. We are taking the lead. And so the technology supports groups like us coming together and saying, we have the money, we know what our country needs, we know that we have a platform that can support us. Let us do this as a collective. and let's execute that. And so we write that into code, and this is where the DAO comes in, and this is what a smart contract is. That's self-executing. If X happens, then Y will self-execute. So it's a complicated concept, but it's super simple. And so what we're trying to do is take it out of the realm of, well, that's something for those men over there, and say, hey, we are going to leverage this technology because we have a plan for our country. We know that we are intelligent, we are successful, we have all of the means and the capital to really have an impact. Let's leverage this technology to do it in a new and exciting way. And so that's why I'm so excited to be able to have this opportunity to tell you guys that this could be the future for our country. This is what we need to do. Everyone's like, what do we do? What do we do? Let's get together and do it. Let's use this platform and leverage technology to advance things that we care about.
And you know, as far as what Genevieve is doing, that future is now in Haiti with
Absolutely.
Projects,
Absolutely.
right? And we're hoping to see this more ubiquitously. You know, Maureen, you started to mention you do need money, right? We understand that concept. But can you talk a little bit about what cryptocurrency is and how that falls into this space, or is an extension of this space, right? It might be a little bit of tokenism, right? Or I'm using a word that I learned. I'm trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about. But explain to us, like, what is cryptocurrency then, right? Because some people here have wallets, but they may not know what they can do with it. And what is it exactly?
So cryptocurrency is a digital currency, right? And we talked a little bit about Zelle and all that, but it is a digital currency that can be used as a medium of exchange, so a way to go from, you know, let's say you buy one type of crypto and you want to do a crypto to crypto transaction. So you'll have a Bitcoin and you can buy, or you can trade or exchange for ETH. And you go through a platform, or you go through if I have a digital wallet and Danielle has a digital wallet, we don't need Coinbase, right? We can just exchange, you know, amongst each other. We might need Coinbase initially, right, to get the coins that we need or the cryptos that we need. And I know we have this love-hate relationship with exchanges, but I think that's one of the easiest ways to just get your toes wet, you know. But once you've done that and you've gotten yourself off of the platform, or you're able to transact out of the platform, that's the benefit of having that digital wallet that you have with all those different currencies. But the cryptocurrency, the crypto in the cryptocurrency term stands for cryptographic, right? So that also means that when you are having these different transactions with these cryptocurrencies, it is attached to, I don't know, what's a better word than saying hash, I don't know.
Go ahead, give
right,
us the
it's
term,
attached, right?
So that
it's got a whole, you know, it's attached to your digital wallet. That's several characters long. And then you also have this, the cryptography that kind of protects that information or data around what you're transacting, which is why I say, yes, we might have our different addresses, but our names are not connected to the cryptos that we move, right, or the cryptos that we buy. Although I did mention the exchanges, so obviously if you get it from an exchange, your name is attached to it. But let's say you're outside of the platform and you're going, it's between Danielle and I. And so I think the value in cryptocurrency, aside from all the bad things you've heard about cryptocurrency, right? I think the value of cryptocurrency is, I guess, first and foremost, the fact that Danielle and I could transact without having to go through this other person. And we know that what I sent is what I had to send, right? So I'm not gonna, you know, my digital wallet is not gonna have a negative balance or anything like that. If I don't have it to send, it will not go out. And so with that, I think that kind of creates an environment or a place where people really can have not only financial inclusion, but financial literacy, right? Because I think one of the biggest things that our banking system has done in terms of an injustice to people is making you, you know, pay all these fees, have all these, you know, different issues with keeping your account in the positive, but also the fact that if I had cryptocurrencies in my wallet, I could do with them what I wanted whenever I wanted. If you have money in a bank account, you may only be able to take out $2,500 for the day because they are using the rest, whatever that is, in your account to do whatever they need to do. So they need to restrict you so that they can freely use whatever funding they have, right? They have fractional banking. They have all these things that they do with the money of the people that are in their different accounts. So I think with cryptocurrency, this is the last thing I'll say, in addition to the cryptography and being able to transact, I mean, right now, because of the volatility, it's not an everyday use type of medium of exchange. But I think at some point, especially because people are creating other types of assets that you can use and transact with, like digital assets that are not all cryptocurrencies are digital assets. I'll say that. But just to think about like how you communicate with people, how you're able to exchange, how you're able to pay for certain things. Using cryptocurrency is an option, is an alternative outside of the traditional system that I think everyone should at least consider.
I'm so glad you said this because I think what we've come to understand is that we understand the financial inclusion, right? This is very inclusive, this technology, this movement, but the risks, right? And we tend to be risk averse. The older we get, the more traditional our families are, we work so hard for the money, don't throw it away. My parents were bankers and they're like, don't get into that crypto thing. However, as I understand more, I'm thinking, wait a minute, there's like sovereignty in this, right? A real way that I can control my money, but there are risks, right? So how do I explain to my 70-year-old parents the risk, right? And how that risk is mitigated through governance, through transparency. Can you guys each talk about that in some way?
Well, I will say that if you're looking at cryptocurrency as a way to invest your hard-earned money, there is a huge risk. It is a volatile market. You have to educate yourself on the technology, and each currency, there's actually a project behind it. They have these different names, but most projects that are legitimate actually have some utility. They were developed to do X. They were developed to do Y. So it's more than, well, let me go on an exchange and let me see what this particular currency is trading at. It's, well, let me go to that website and see what is the protocol about? Who supports this? Who are their investors? Why did someone with Bitcoin existing and ETH existing, why does Sol exist? Why does Hedera Hashgraph exist? There are actually a lot of different technologies behind each cryptocurrency. And I know we don't want to take it too technically, but each cryptocurrency or each coin or each blockchain solves a mathematical problem or it transacts in a different way. So the Bitcoin blockchain, which is a proof of work blockchain in terms of its consensus algorithm, soaks up a lot of energy because you have these huge computers trying to solve these problems to then create another blockchain. But then the blockchain that we use, Hedera Hashgraph, is actually a carbon negative blockchain. So we're actually very environmental. So each project is different. So you have to do that research to understand what is the consensus algorithm? How is a transaction completed on this blockchain? Who created this blockchain? Like if you don't have information on that, I would not recommend putting your hard-earned money into it. It's for these individuals who see it as like a get-rich-quick, I can just buy this and sell that. That is a huge risk.
That's where it's risky. With that, Danielle, I want to, you really ended on the note of we have to educate ourselves. We have to know what we're investing in, what the blockchain is. There are things called the white papers. Every single one has a mission statement of why it exists. We have to educate ourselves. We do have to understand this is not this is not the flips of the early 2000s, right? This is long-term generational wealth building. You got to be in it to win it. You've got to have be willing to not invest more than you're willing to lose until you understand what you're investing in. But with that, let's open it up to questions that any of you have. And please, no questions are bad questions, the more simple, and we have someone there. Is there a microphone to pass around? Or do you want to just come up to the stage a little closer so we can hear you?
Okay, yes. So,
And your name, too.
okay, my name is Vanessa Orvig, and my question is, I was introduced to WebD through like Build Space and like Baddies in Tech, and they talk about creating smart contracts and like handshakes or high fives, and they mention like you may get an Ethereum or coin and different wallet. Like, how does all of that relate to what you guys are saying? Because it doesn't, the way they explain it, it wouldn't cost me to make a smart contract, but am I like benefiting the person that's the head of, that receives all the handshakes?
Okay, Vanessa has a complicated question, but
Yeah,
let's
that's-
take
that's
it back
So this-
because
I can
if you
probably
can
answer
yes,
it.
dissect
So
it for us.
This is what Danielle was talking about, a project. What is that project about? So at the end of the day, the reality is everybody's trying to build a business also. So it's understanding your role in there and how it is about. And for me, the education piece is, we talk, like City Venture actually just came out with something to say this is going to be a $13 trillion business by 2030. So in ways, it's important for us to be able to participate. And I want to take it back to say, it's not about the crypto. It's not about the wallet. It's about what needs to happen. Lawyers, business analysts, business people, and how this company has created a product. So we need to create product with this technology and then create wealth through that. So it's important for us to understand the terminology, understand the language, and then start digging. Like, we can talk to you later and see where somebody is making money for sure.
Right.
So the smart contract, and people use, this is where it gets very scary because people use the words in ways to create a picture that may not exist. At times, it exists and it's real. So Hedera Hashgraph is a kind of blockchain technology, and it's the same way you have very different databases. So each database does certain things. So we were talking a bit about Bitcoin. I don't invest, but I have. You know why? Because people in China were saying to me, I'll pay you for doing this job. I'm like, okay, this is my address, send my Bitcoins. And I received money that way. And actually, in 2020, I received $1,000, and that was right before it shut up. I paid my rent for 5 months with that money. So it's important for you to understand how. So somebody says, I can't pay you, and in money, I have crypto. You say, okay, which one do you have? And then you look and see the value, and then understand. So the same way you have to buy it, you can sell it, and understand how you sell it, and what does it do to your portfolio. So those are the things that are important to understand and to also teach. And I think the biggest thing about it is you don't need to move then to get that job.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Anyone else? The young lady here with the glasses in front.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Come. Make it quick. We'll make it happen. Let's make it happen.
You kind of scared me when you said that.
There's a mic.
Thank you. You kind of scared me when you said that this is a transaction that can be done between two individuals, only because of the fact that there's a lot of Ponzi schemes going on out there. And recently in New York City, we just had like thousands of people
wrap up your question quick. We're running out
crying
of time.
because
So
they
get
just
to your
lost
question.
money. So how do you guys address the legalistic aspect of people interacting in these types of investment?
Great question. Maureen or Danielle, both of you are attorneys. Yes.
Sure. So as far as our platform, we operate in the United States, and we are in compliance with the financial regulatory requirements in the U.S. And so that's how we deal with it. We have a financial institution that's a partner, and we've partnered with Visa, and we've partnered with our blockchain. So we are leveraging 3 layers of technology to ensure that we provide our users compliant services.
Thank you, ladies. Fabulous conversation. What advice do you all have for nonprofit organizations and this crypto movement?
So I'll take that. There is a, I've been toying with the idea of the non-fungible token. So non-fungible token, right now many of us are seeing that as an image or music files, but it is data. And you can now start bringing in your community to support. And as Danielle was talking a bit about this whole idea of DAO, you can then bring in projects and make decisions. And those become investment into your projects that can then bring back. So either it's also with your community, you're providing them with what has happened, what are the progresses that are happening, and how it's affecting the community that they're serving. Because a lot of time when we give to charity, we don't know, we don't have visibility of where it's going on. But if you can create, this is the beauty of also even the social media. So you create that language and that communication with those who are supporting you. So I think there's a big opportunity for non-for-profit to actually use that and to create that transparency of the work that you have done.
And with that, I want to thank you all. I want to thank our panelists who are really on the cutting edge to take the time, share this with us. Follow all of them. They're in the Whova app. We have Genevieve Leveille of AgriLedger, Daniele Jean-Pierre of ORO Financial, and Maureen Murat of Crowdie Advisor. Okay. Follow them. Do your homework, educate yourself, and keep orange peeling.
Can I give one shout out to the Haitian Blockchain Alliance? So one of the things that we need to do also, so I've been working for the last 8 months, actually it's almost a year, with Marc-Alain Posico, and we have reached over 5,000 youngsters in Haiti who are learning about blockchain. And all the stuff that they've done is also going to be available that you can go and listen. It is approachable. And this is really what we need, is to create that educational foundation so that we can participate.
Say the name one more time.
It's the Haiti Blockchain Alliance.
Haiti
HBA.
Blockchain Alliance.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mark is here. Yeah, he's somewhere around. Annabelle is making work.
Okay, he's volunteering.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Yeah.